In this video, I'm going to show you the top 4 apps for the iPad Pro for architects. So the iPad Pro has been pretty revolutionary for my design practice. I use the Apple Pencil, and they've come out with some newer models that don't require you to charge the pencil using this device here. You can actually hook it, just drop it next to your iPad and run with it. The iPad Pro original one, though, still has tremendous computing power and works very well with the Apple Pencil. Allows you to draw fluid lines, has palm rejection. The new iPad Pro probably has a little bit more robust, although I haven't noticed much drag with this iPad, and it has really served me well and not really fallen flat on any of the apps that I try to load on it. Now I know eventually Apple's going to kind of phase this model out, and I'll be forced to upgrade just because of the operating system and so forth. But right now, this older iPad Pro is working really well with these 4 apps that you'll find very useful for your architectural practice. The 4 we're going to cover today are Procreate, Adobe Sketch, Concepts, and Morpholio Trace. These are the top 4 that if you're going to be using an iPad for architecture, these are the 4 that I suggest you start off with right out of the bat. Now, Procreate is one that Procreate cost $9.99. Now, for $9.99, this thing is an absolute steal. I mean, the amazing part of being able to draw in the iPad is to have it look like realistic pencils or pens and that kind of thing. And Procreate actually gets the closest out of all these to those realistic pencils and just, draw on paper. So there's so thousands of reviews, and they're 4.4 out of 5 stars. So this is a must-have app for your iPad Pro, and probably the one that I would start with first. Now, if you don't want to spend $10, then you're probably not meant to draw on the iPad Pro. If you spend so much on the Pro model anyway, just to get the pencil and the iPad itself, spend an extra $10 and get Procreate. Okay, so Procreate is a drawing app. Allows you to create multiple artworks, even stacks. If you're doing like a particular project, you can have stacks for that project that allows you to group all your drawings into one. If we were to create a new drawing here, you get a list of sizes that you want. I'm going to choose square, but you have a choice of custom sizes as well. If this is going to go on Instagram or something, you might want to start with a square canvas and stick to that. Up in the top left is a gallery and some additional tools, kind of like the system tools to the program. And then on the right side are more the drawing tools, the brushes, the color wheel, and the smudge tool and eraser, and then a layering. Layering becomes really handy when you're dropping colors in behind your hand-drawn sketches. So I'll show you some of that. One pen brush that I've gotten really into lately, you can go through and explore all these different kinds, but the one that I'm really into is the ink bleed brush here. And if you set that color to black, then you get a very realistic brush that looks like a bleeding pen when it bleeds out. It's pressure sensitive, so the more that you press on it, the more ink that comes out, and really is pretty awesome how it works. So if you were to be drawing something, you can have lighter or darker lines depending on what it is that you're drawing, which is nice to have that pressure sensitivity and makes it feel like it's a real pencil, a real pen, whatever the tool that it is that you're using. Now, another one that I found to be useful is the marker, and I really like this flat marker. It kind of has a feeling of a marker that's been dried up a little bit, has a little bit of lost kind of its amount of bleed. If you were to create like a new layer and hold it slightly and drop it down below this layer, then you can use this marker and actually draw behind the layer, and you can see it really starts to work like a real marker. The more layers you put on, it's kind of like a transparent feel to it. Then use this finger brush, and you can really kind of smear all that out and make it have an interesting look to it. It kind of, if you had some dark areas and you use the smudge tool, you can bleed those dark areas out into some of the other areas, and just gives you a different feel to your drawings if you were to play around with that a little bit, and then come back in and erase it so that your the stuff that you don't want bleeding through into that second layer doesn't. And then you can actually adjust the opacity of these layers. If you hit the N, then you can drop the opacity so you can see it changing in its quality there. There's multiply layer, linear, and color burn and darken. So a lot of options, and normal. Just endless effects and options that allow you to really get interesting results from this. You can see I've been playing around a bit with some of these things. This ink splatter gets a nice effect. And then the glow, there's some brushes that actually glow like nighttime that kind of provide an interesting look to your sketches. So these are fun little tools to play around with, and I suggest that you download Procreate as your first option. And let's look at the next app. So Adobe Sketch is the next one that I wanted to talk about, and this one comes with your Adobe Creative Cloud subscription. If you are a member of that, then you can download this app for free to your iPad. If you're not, then suggest you joining, because you get Photoshop, all the apps for a monthly payment. And I know we love monthly payments, but it is what it is. So let's just choose one of these options here. It creates a new background. Over on the right are some layers that you can create. You can import images and sketch on top of them. Over to the left is kind of a limited brush menu. It keeps your palette very simple, but you can see there's a pen setting, which also is very pressure sensitive. You can see the colors there are indicated on the left. You can change those colors by selecting and hitting color, and go to the picker, or whatever you if you have a library of colors, you can choose those. Going to the colors back and forth is a little bit more challenging than the color in Procreate, because you have to actually you have to click on the tool and then change the color, whereas Procreate, you're in the tool and you can click up in the top and change the color a little bit faster. There's some other brushes though that are really unique and different with this. This is a kind of a wet pastel, or you can see this thing, look at it, grows. It's crazy. And the more you press, the darker it is at the start, and then kind of bleeds into these others. And then one that I really like is this watercolor brush. It comes with a little fan down at the bottom. If you noticed, when I selected that little fan appeared down there. So you can actually take these, and you see how they grow. And when you add to them, they bleed out like watercolor. Now, if you hit the fan button, it freezes that, so they no longer, it's like drying your paper instantly. So you can come back in and add another layer, and it doesn't start to bleed until you add some more water around it. Now you can take this brush, and you could change the color to another color. It's just going to bleed in with that color that you had, and then hit fan, and it dries it instantly. So it's got a real watercolor feel. I think that is the most promising thing about the Adobe Sketch program is the watercolor. So I've even drawn some stuff in Procreate with their brushes that I feel like is a little bit better, and allows you to, do things like set a solid line. That this doesn't, whatever you draw, you can't make it a straight line. So not that these tools aren't good. They're great. They have a great quality to the pencil. The pen is a good quality. It's just the Procreate app offers a little bit more tools that are built in and a little bit easier to get to for drawing architecture. But if you were to draw in Procreate and then bring it into Adobe Sketch as a image background, then you could do all your watercolor stuff right over the top of that sketch, and you'd be good to go. So you can send this program also has time lapse and some other image export features to it. One thing I did not mention was Procreate actually has the ability to live stream your drawing. So if you've got a YouTube account, you can link that up with Procreate in the app and stream live directly to your YouTube account and draw as you as you are going live on your video. So the third one is Concepts. Now Concepts was one of the first apps that I downloaded. It was the first one that I found, and it's interesting because it does have a little bit different feel than the others. It's kind of got a very architectural feel to me, whereas Procreate has more of an artist feel, even though it has a lot of tools for architects. This one has something that just feels a little bit more architectural because it comes on with a grid. It's got kind of an image board there. You can import images, whatever, photos, take a picture, all this kind of stuff. It also has some built-in landscape tools, which makes me even feel more like it's geared towards architecture. Has some furniture. You can actually buy things on the marketplace, like some of these furniture, the tools, some of these perspective things, little features that you can buy and import, have you kind of be able to import into your drawing environment. So now this one's set up a little bit different. On the left is a control wheel, allows you to go through different brushes that have different properties assigned to them. So if you've got your favorite brushes, you can have them set up on the left, and then the color wheel is really cool the way it pops out. You can go through all the different colors on here and pick the color that you find to be the best, and then you'll be able to draw on here. Now usually this little dot doesn't show up when you're drawing. This dot is showing up because I am streaming out to my computer from the iPad, so it's trying to highlight where my pencil is. Normally you wouldn't see that little shadow dot following your pencil around everywhere, but this one has some similar pressure sensitivity to it. It doesn't have the straight line feature, but it does have a grid, which is nice, and it has a snap. So if you draw to something, it'll ask you if you want to snap to it, and then you can snap to that line if you need to. I haven't found that to be that useful or needed, but you can also set measurements. So this is not quite as good as the next app that we're going to talk about, but this one does allow you to set some units to your drawing. So if you have a grid, you can actually assign a certain size to these that will allow you to measure things. You can see it's giving me some measurements of the line there. They're telling me how far that I'm drawing that out. You can also set that to be, instead of pixels, you can do inches or feet and inches. So let's see what this does. If I draw this out, it's showing 6, 7, almost 1 inch. Can we get to 1 inch? Yeah, right there. So that could be useful if you're trying to scale something and you want to draw it a certain size. Then you could do that, and it would help guide you a little bit. There's guides, so you can create certain kind of arcs and then draw right on those to give you a guide. That's not available with Procreate as far as I know. Now the layers, the way the layers work, they're automatic. So when you change tools, you'll see it actually changes a new layer to it. So if I go to a different type of tool, like a fill, then it changes to a fill layer, and I've got some pens and pencil layers. So it kind of organizes it by tool, unless you tell it that you want to do it manually, and then you have the option to create your own type of layers. Now, I didn't point out this fill thing, but this is really cool, the way you can draw actually and fill in certain spaces with the colors that you want. Of course, you can change the opacity to all that and overlay a bunch of images, fill patterns, that kind of stuff, which is useful and interesting. So that let's see, I don't think you can export to basically these formats. If you buy, I think if you don't do the Pro, then you have less options on your export. So, all right, let's look at the next app. The next app is probably the most geared towards architecture of all these four. It's really handy for drawing scaled drawings that you want to include in construction documents. You can actually redline your construction documents with this, and it's very effective. It's less frou-frou kind of drawing and designing, and more like marking up and creating construction documents because of the features that it offers. So let's look at, we'll just do a blank page here. On the left is your menu of tools. Up in the top left are some system things, and then the top middle are some other tools like rulers, which are handy for drawing straight lines, and then this triangle, which is cool. And if you notice, you draw on the triangle, it just infinitely goes for you there. You can double click and it'll rotate around for you. Some other like angle tools, you can draw a certain angle there, and then set this guy, and you could do stuff like this. So that's pretty handy. The ruler is great. What's also really nice is the measuring. So if you know the length of something, let's say this line here that you brought in from a construction document set, this line is 10 feet 4 inches, so you could put 10 feet, and then in here put 4 inches, and then when you bring in your ruler and line it up on this line here, you'll see it's right at 10 foot 4, so it hits right on there. So that's really handy for when you're bringing in drawings and you need to measure things. Now this thing gets its name from trace, which is the roles of trace that we use, overlaying drawings and overlaying. Now the same thing you can do with this app here. If you create a new overlay, it's like it lays down a piece of trace. You can, if you're used to drawing with canary color or a really dark yellow, you can do that. You can also do a black. You can also set these to have 0 opacity or transparency, so that it blocks out more of what's underneath or less of what's underneath. So you can set that however you like. Some other little features here, and you can take these, if you three finger pinch, you can actually scale these down and rotate them around. So like if I was to draw over this, I want this line, I want this, I want the arc, and I want this. So I've drawn that on my new piece of trace, and I want to position that in a different spot. I 3-finger pinch it, and I can move that into a position, like let's say we want it right there. And then I can go, if I click one of these layers, it's going to reset the view to that saved particular view. So now I've got that, and I can add a whole new layer on top. So you can continue to layer these images and turn off things in the background. So now you've got this weird shape right here if you need it. So you can see how this will be very useful for architectural drawings. I oftentimes will bring in multi-page documents, and you'll see all the documents listed here on the left. Let me show you an example of that really quick. I'll bring in this drawing here, and you can see that I've got multiple pages of drawings. I could come in here, and if I need to mark up this particular thing, I could create a new layer, draw this window and say new, whatever, real messy like that. And then I could send this drawing out to scale at the same scale that it was previously. Or I can change the sheet size to any other different thing that I need. If I have a bunch of markups, I'm going to delete this. If I have a bunch of markups on this set, then I can go back to this page layout, and up in the top right, hit this send button and share the thing as a PDF or a series of images. And it all links up to your iCloud account, so you can easily move stuff between iCloud and your computer and all that kind of stuff. So it makes it very effective and efficiently, and I think you can also send it to Dropbox probably, or bring in images from cloud drives, camera, library. See what kind of cloud drives. Yeah, so on the left it shows you can bring it in from all these different options, Dropbox, whatever it is that you need to bring it in. So I hope that you found this to be very useful, and that you are going to maybe play around with these 4 apps in particular. I know that for me it was a struggle to find which apps fit best into my workflow, and I feel like I found that with these 4, that they really complement all the various stages of design. So if you need to do some sketches with Procreate, and then maybe bring that in and do a little touch up color and stuff with Adobe Sketch, or maybe start with concepts and do something particular with that you feel that software really helps you with. Sometimes I start with that, sometimes I start with Procreate. It all depends. And then when you start to get into construction and laying out sheets and that kind of stuff, or getting more hardline and working with dimensions, it really helps to start to bring things into Morpholio Trace. So those are all the ways that I've tried to simplify my office and get things more digitized to make it a little bit easier to send things back and forth, to overlay and not have all the additional paper and all that kind of stuff. It actually makes it a lot easier to save the drawings that you do create and share those. So I hope that you are able to explore a little bit and found some value with maybe some of these apps you didn't know about, and maybe you're thinking about taking your office more digital, and this could be maybe helpful as a starting point for you to jump in and take that leap to a more digital office. So if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment and let me know what it is. I also am coming out with a SketchUp course to take you all the way through SketchUp and show you some rendering and stuff in Lumion that'll allow you to communicate better and more effectively with your clients. So if you go to SketchUp4ArchitectsCourse.com, you'll see a sign up for that course where you can get notified and get some cool tips and tricks on how to communicate better to your clients with using three-dimensional drawing. And some of this stuff is going to start in the iPad. I'm going to take you through a project going from Sketch to rendered out animation and show you all the steps I take along the way. And go sign up over there and let me know what it is that you're interested in. Leave me a comment and subscribe. Thanks.